Jean-Paul Sartre, A Philosophical Journey Through Time, 1905 to 1980. Welcome to our channel. Today, we explore the fascinating life and work of Jean-Paul Sartre, one of the most influential philosophers of the 20th century. Prepare for a philosophical journey through time, from Sartre's birth in Paris to his lasting impact as a thinker, playwright, and activist. Follow us as we delve into key moments in his life and understand how his ideas shaped contemporary thought. 1905, born in Paris. Jean-Paul Charles Aimard Sartre was born on June 21, 1905, in Paris, France, one of the cultural and intellectual epicenters of the Western world. From an early age, his life was marked by events that would profoundly shape his character and philosophy. The early loss of his father, who passed away when Sartre was just 1 year old, left a significant gap in his childhood. Without a father figure, Sartre was raised by his mother, Anne-Marie Schweitzer, in an environment that intensely valued education and intellectual development. His mother, belonging to a cultured family with academic traditions, played a crucial role in his education. Sartre's maternal grandfather, Charles Schweitzer, was a respected professor of German, which gave the young Jean-Paul privileged access to the world of books and ideas. This family environment, full of literary and philosophical debates, fostered in him a deep interest in critical and abstract thinking. During his childhood, Sartre showed himself to be a curious and introspective child, often delving into the books in his grandfather's vast library. The absence of his father, paradoxically, seems to have catalyzed a process of self-exploration and reflection from an early age. He developed a keen sensitivity to the human condition, a theme that would later become central to his philosophical work. Sartre attended several prestigious schools in Paris, where he continued to cultivate his love of reading and philosophy. His educational environment was highly competitive, stimulating in him an incessant desire to learn and excel academically. It was during these formative years that Sartre began to outline his first ideas about individual freedom and personal responsibility, concepts that would later be central to his existentialist philosophy. The city of Paris, with its rich cultural and intellectual life, also had a significant influence on Sartre. Attending cafes and literary circles, he was exposed to a wide range of thoughts and debates that further broadened his intellectual horizon. This vibrant urban context, combined with his rigorous education, formed the foundation upon which Sartre would build his vast and influential philosophical corpus. Therefore, Jean-Paul Sartre's birth and childhood were not only the beginning of a life, but also the beginning of an intellectual journey that would revolutionize contemporary philosophy. The combination of a childhood marked by paternal absence and an environment rich in intellectual stimulation prepared Sartre to become one of the most brilliant and provocative minds of the 20th century. 1917. Academic training. In 1917, Jean-Paul Sartre entered the Lycée Henri IV in Paris, one of the most renowned secondary education establishments in France. It was in this rigorous and stimulating academic environment that Sartre began to develop a deep interest in philosophy, a discipline that would shape his entire life and future work. The Lycée Henri IV, known for its academic excellence, offered a robust curriculum that encouraged critical thinking and intellectual exploration. During his years at the Lyceum, Sartre came into contact with the works of great classical and modern philosophers, which awakened in him a passion for existential questioning and the great questions of human life. He began to explore themes such as freedom, individual responsibility, and the nature of existence, themes that would later become central to his existentialist philosophy. This phase of his training was crucial for the development of his thought, as it was at the Lyceum Henri IV that he found the right environment to cultivate his natural inclination towards philosophical reflection. An interesting point of rapprochement between Sartre and Stoicism can be found in the way they both view individual responsibility and freedom. Stoics, such as Epictetus and Seneca, emphasize the importance of living in accordance with reason and accepting what we cannot control, while striving to improve what is within our power. Likewise, Sartre, in his existentialist philosophy, argues that human beings are radically free and therefore responsible for their choices and the meaning they attribute to their lives. Although Sartre rejects Stoic determinism in favor of absolute freedom, the emphasis on personal responsibility is a significant common link. 1924, normal school hire. In 1924, Sartre took a decisive step in his intellectual trajectory when he was admitted to the prestigious École Normale Supérieure in Paris. This institution was a center of academic and intellectual excellence, attracting some of France's brightest young minds. It was in this highly stimulating environment that Sartre met Simone de Beauvoir, who would become his lifelong intellectual and loving partner. The relationship between Sartre and Beauvoir was marked by a profound exchange of ideas and a mutual commitment to philosophy and writing, creating one of the most famous intellectual collaborations of the 20th century. During his time at the École Normale Supérieure, Sartre delved deeply into the study of philosophy, preparing for the agrégation exams, a rigorous competition that qualifies philosophy teachers in France. He graduated with a degree in philosophy in 1929, marking the beginning of a remarkable career that would see him become one of the most influential philosophers of the 20th century. His training at the École Normale Supérieure not only consolidated his philosophical knowledge, but also exposed him to a vibrant circle of thinkers and scholars who would significantly influence his intellectual development. Living with Stoic ideas during his studies could also have influenced Sartre, even if indirectly. The Stoic focus on individual autonomy and control over one's reactions to external circumstances would resonate with Sartre's future elaborations on individual freedom and responsibility. Both philosophical systems encourage a deep examination of oneself and an acceptance of the realities of existence, although Sartre emphasizes radical freedom while the Stoics promote serenity through rational acceptance. Therefore, Jean-Paul Sartre's years of academic training were fundamental for the development of his existentialist philosophy, which intertwines in an interesting way with principles of Stoicism, especially with regard to personal responsibility and freedom. Sartre emerged from these educational experiences as a thinker committed to the deep exploration of human capabilities and the meaning of existence. 1931, teacher and writer. In 1931, Jean-Paul Sartre began a new phase in his professional life when he began teaching philosophy in the port city of Le Havre, France. This experience as a teacher was fundamental not only for his personal development, but also for the consolidation of his philosophical ideas. Teaching philosophy at Le Havre allowed Sartre direct contact with budding young minds, providing him with the opportunity to test and refine his theories about existence, consciousness, and freedom. At the same time, Sartre published his first philosophical book, The Imagination. In this early work, he explored the complexities of perception and mental creation, issues that would remain central to his work. The Imagination marked the beginning of his literary and philosophical career, establishing him as an emerging voice on the French intellectual scene. The book examined how human beings form mental images and how these images influence our understanding of the world, anticipating many of the themes that Sartre would later develop in his major work, Being and Nothingness. Combining his work as a teacher and writer allowed Sartre a platform to spread his ideas and interact with a wider audience. His ability to communicate complex philosophical concepts in an accessible way was one of the keys to his early success. Furthermore, this phase of his career was characterized by intense intellectual productivity, with Sartre delving deeply into questions about the nature of reality and human experience. An interesting point of connection between Sartre and Stoicism, especially in relation to his work as a teacher and writer, is the importance they both attribute to understanding and controlling the mind. Stoics, like Seneca, argued that the human mind possesses the power to shape our perception of reality and that true freedom lies in the ability to control our reactions and emotions. Sartre, although from a different perspective, also explores how consciousness and imagination influence our existence and our choices. For Sartre, imagination is not just an escape from reality, but a tool through which we can understand and transform the world. During his years in Le Havre, Sartre also began to sketch some of his best-known existentialist ideas. He investigated the relationship between individual freedom and responsibility, a theme that echoes the Stoic philosophy of personal autonomy and self-discipline. Both the Stoics and Sartre share the belief that, despite external circumstances, individuals have the power and responsibility to shape their own lives through their choices and actions. Therefore, the beginning of Sartre's career as a teacher and writer in 1931 not only laid the foundation for his philosophical influence, but also reflected themes that resonate with the tenets of Stoicism. His exploration of human imagination and consciousness helped form the basis of a philosophy that, like Stoicism, seeks to understand and improve the human condition. Sartre was just beginning his journey, but it was already clear that his contributions to philosophy would be profound and lasting. 1936, Doctorate in Existentialism. In 1936, Jean-Paul Sartre achieved a significant milestone in his academic career by obtaining the title of Doctor of Philosophy. His thesis, entitled The Transcendence of the Ego, marked an important step in the evolution of his philosophical thought. In this work, Sartre challenges the traditional view of consciousness as something passive and introspective, proposing instead that the ego is a product of consciousness, not a fundamental component of it. This innovative concept was crucial to the development of his existentialist ideas, which he would continue to explore and refine throughout his career. The transcendence of the ego proposes that consciousness is intentional and focused on the external world, rather than being a mere receiver of impressions. Sartre argues that the ego is a construct that arises from the interaction of consciousness with the world, and not a fixed entity. This idea challenges traditional Cartesian and Kantian conceptions and establishes a basis for Sartre's existentialist philosophy, which emphasizes freedom, responsibility, and human subjectivity. It was also during this period that Sartre began to develop his existentialist ideas more deeply. He explored the notion that human beings are condemned to be free, a freedom that brings with it the responsibility to define the very meaning of life. This concept of radical freedom is central to Sartre's existentialism, highlighting the absence of a predetermined essence in human beings. Instead, each individual must create their own meaning through their choices and actions. This idea of freedom and responsibility resonates with the principles of Stoicism, which also values individual autonomy and control over one's actions and reactions. Although the Stoics believed in a rational and deterministic universe, they argued that individuals could achieve virtue and inner peace by accepting and working within the limitations imposed by nature. Sartre, on the other hand, sees the absence of any pre-existing order or meaning as the fundamental condition of human freedom. Still, both philosophical systems converge on the importance of living according to ethical principles and taking responsibility for our choices. The influence of the transcendence of the ego and the ideas developed during this period is evident in his later works, including Being and Nothingness. Sartre began to articulate a vision of the human being as a constantly developing project where existence precedes essence. This means that people are not born with a predetermined purpose, but must instead create themselves through their actions. This period also marked the beginning of Sartre's notoriety as a philosopher. His ideas began to gain attention and debate among academic and intellectual circles, setting the stage for his future contributions to philosophy and literature. Sartre continued to explore and expand his existentialist ideas, solidifying his position as one of the most important and influential thinkers of the 20th century. Therefore, obtaining his doctorate in 1936 with the thesis, The Transcendence of the Ego, was a crucial point in Jean-Paul Sartre's career. This work not only challenged traditional philosophical conceptions, but also laid the foundation for his existentialist philosophy, which would revolutionize the way we understand human freedom and responsibility. In many ways, Sartre's ideas about freedom and meaning-making reflect a quest shared with Stoicism, the search for an authentic and responsible life. 1939, War and Resistance. In 1939, with the outbreak of World War II, Jean-Paul Sartre, like many of his compatriots, was called to serve in the French army. However, due to ill health, he was released from active service. This dispensation, although it kept him off the front lines of the conflict, did not prevent Sartre from actively participating in the intellectual resistance against fascism and the Nazi occupation of France. During the war, Sartre witnessed the brutality and dehumanization that the conflict brought, experiences that deepened his commitment to freedom and individual responsibility, central pillars of his existentialist philosophy. The war and Nazi occupation provided a dark and urgent context for his reflections on freedom, self-deception, and authenticity. Sartre saw war as an extreme expression of bad faith, where individuals and entire societies deny their freedom and responsibility, resulting in acts of oppression and violence. It was during this tumultuous period that Sartre founded, in 1945, the magazine Les Temps Modernes. This magazine quickly became an important vehicle for anti-fascist and existentialist thought. Les Temps Modernes was not only a forum to discuss philosophy, but also a space to explore social, political, and cultural issues, offering a platform for writers, philosophers, and intellectuals committed to the fight against totalitarianism and the promotion of freedom. The creation of Les Temps Modernes can be seen as an expression of Sartre's resistance against oppression and tyranny. The magazine allowed him to articulate his ideas about freedom and responsibility in a context of active resistance. Sartre and his collaborators used the publication to vigorously criticize fascism and the Nazi occupation, in addition to discussing the reconstruction of a fairer and freer France and world. This stance of active resistance and intellectual engagement has interesting parallels with Stoicism. The Stoics, especially during the difficult times of the Roman Empire, also emphasized the importance of internal resistance and maintaining moral integrity in the face of oppression and adversity. While Stoics such as Seneca and Epictetus focused on personal resistance and internal resilience, Sartre expanded this concept to include active, public resistance against social and political injustice. The war also led Sartre to reflect more deeply on the human condition and the need to face reality with courage and authenticity. The urgency and gravity of the circumstances forced many to confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of existence and the fragility of freedom, themes central to Sartre's existentialism. He saw in war a reflection of the constant struggle of individuals to assert their freedom against overwhelming forces that seek to subjugate them. Therefore, the period of the Second World War was a crucial moment in the life and work of Jean-Paul Sartre. His exemption from direct military service did not diminish his participation in the fight against tyranny. On the contrary, he found in the intellectual sphere a battlefield for his resistance. The founding of the magazine Les Temps Modernes was a testament to his commitment to freedom and responsibility, reflecting an ongoing struggle that resonates with both existentialism and Stoic principles of resilience and moral integrity in the face of adversity. 1943. Being and Nothingness. In 1943, Jean-Paul Sartre published his most famous work, Being and Nothingness, L'être et le net, which would become a fundamental landmark in 20th century philosophical thought. This extensive and complex book is Sartre's most complete exposition of the principles of existentialism, establishing his position as one of the leading philosophers of his time. Being and Nothingness is a profound analysis of human existence and consciousness. Sartre introduces key concepts such as the distinction between being in itself, l'être en soi, and being for itself, l'être pour soi. Being in itself refers to the existence of things that simply are, without awareness of themselves. In contrast, being for self is the way of being of humans, characterized by consciousness and the ability to reflect on oneself and the world around one. Central to the work is the notion of radical freedom. Sartre argues that, as conscious beings, we are condemned to be free. There is no predetermined essence or nature that defines us, but rather we are free to create our own being through the choices we make. This freedom, however, comes with an equally radical responsibility, as we are entirely responsible for our actions and the construction of our own meaning. Sartre also explores the concept of bad faith, mauvaise foi, a form of self-deception in which people attempt to escape the anguish that accompanies absolute freedom by pretending that they are not free and therefore not responsible for their actions. It examines how individuals often hide behind social roles and expectations to avoid facing the reality of their freedom. This approach to freedom and responsibility has resonances with Stoicism, albeit from a different perspective. The Stoics also believed in the importance of accepting responsibility for one's actions and living according to reason. However, while the Stoics saw freedom as the acceptance of the rational order of the cosmos, Sartre saw freedom as the absence of any predefined structure or essence, placing the creation of meaning in the hands of the individual. 1945. Post-war and political engagement. After the end of World War II, Jean-Paul Sartre emerged as one of France's most influential intellectual voices. He became a leading public intellectual, using his position and prestige to actively engage in left-wing social and political movements. Sartre saw the post-war period as an opportunity to redefine and rebuild society, promoting ideas of freedom, equality, and social justice. Sartre was deeply involved in several political and social causes, including supporting the independence movement in Algeria and criticizing French colonialism. He was a vocal defender of human rights and a fierce critic of social injustices. His active participation in politics reflected his belief that philosophy should not just be a theoretical discipline, but an engaged practice that seeks to transform society. The founding of the magazine Les Temps Modernes in 1945 was a natural extension of his political engagement. The magazine became a forum for discussing contemporary social, political, and cultural issues, bringing together intellectuals who shared their commitment to social justice and freedom. Sartre used the publication to promote progressive ideas and to criticize both capitalism and totalitarianism. His existentialist philosophy, with its focus on freedom and responsibility, provided a theoretical basis for his political activism. Sartre argued that as free beings we have a responsibility to act against oppression and injustice. This idea resonates with Stoicism in that both emphasize the importance of ethical action and commitment to moral principles, even in the face of adversity. Sartre's influence on post-war France was immense, and he became an emblematic figure of the engaged intellectual. He believed that intellectuals had a duty to use their knowledge and influence to promote social and political good. This vision of an active and committed intellectual continues to be relevant and inspiring, highlighting the importance of uniting philosophical thought and practical action in the search for a more just and humane society. 1949, The Flies. In 1949, Jean-Paul Sartre presented the world with his play, The Flies, Les Mouches. This work not only cemented his reputation as one of the leading playwrights of the 20th century, but also continued to explore and deepen the central themes of his existentialist philosophy. The Flies is a reinterpretation of the Greek tragedy Electra by Sophocles, set in a post-World War II world, under the rule of Sartrean existentialism. The play delves deeply into the issues of freedom, responsibility, and guilt, recurring themes in Sartre's work. The main character, Electra, is faced with difficult moral choices as she fights against tyranny and oppression. The play addresses the issue of individual freedom and responsibility for choice in the face of circumstances. Sartre presents his characters in morally complex situations, where each decision carries profound ethical implications. In doing so, he invites the audience to reflect on their own lives and the choices they face, highlighting the importance of acting with authenticity and awareness of their own freedoms. The connection between The Flies and Stoicism can be found in Sartre's emphasis on the importance of moral action and individual responsibility. The Stoics also defended the idea that, despite external circumstances, individuals have the power to shape their own destinies through their choices and actions. Both philosophical systems recognize the importance of living according to ethical principles and taking responsibility for our decisions, even in the face of challenges and adversity. 1952, The Anti-Semite. In 1952, Sartre published the essay, The Anti-Semite, Reflections sur la question juive, an in-depth analysis of the roots and manifestations of anti-Semitism. This essay reflects not only Sartre's intellectual commitment to relevant social and political issues, but also his concern with the moral consequences of prejudiced and discriminatory attitudes. In The Anti-Semite, Sartre investigates the psychological and social origins of anti-Semitism, arguing that it is fueled by bad faith and the need to find a scapegoat for society's problems. He dismantles the stereotypes and false narratives that underpin anti-Semitism, demonstrating how these preconceived ideas are used to justify oppression and violence against Jews. By exposing the distorted logic of anti-Semitism, Sartre also highlights the moral responsibility of individuals to resist this type of ideology. He argues that the anti-Semite not only harms his victims, but also corrupts his own morality by adopting a distorted and inhumane view of the world. This essay reflects Sartre's commitment to social justice and equality, values that permeate his entire work. He uses his platform as an intellectual to denounce prejudice and discrimination, defending the importance of recognizing and respecting the humanity of all individuals, regardless of their ethnic or religious origin. Ultimately, The Anti-Semite is a call for moral awareness and action against all forms of hatred and intolerance. 1964, Nobel Prize denied. In 1964, Jean-Paul Sartre was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature, one of the most prestigious literary recognitions in the world. However, in a surprising decision, Sartre declined the honor. His refusal echoed around the world, sparking debate and generating admiration for his integrity and conviction. Sartre refused the Nobel Prize because he firmly believed that a writer should not institutionalize himself. He saw the Nobel Prize as a form of recognition that could compromise his independence and freedom as a writer. For Sartre, remaining true to his principles and his art was more important than any external award or recognition. This refusal was not only an act of humility, but also a political statement. Sartre used the opportunity to express his opposition to established power structures and his solidarity with the oppressed and marginalized. He believed that true literature must be committed to social justice and freedom rather than personal glory or institutional acceptance. Sartre's refusal of the Nobel Prize highlighted his dedication to his ideals and his courage in facing social and cultural conventions. It was a powerful reminder that true greatness lies in integrity and authenticity, even if that means going against the grain. 1970, Blindness and Latest Works. Starting in 1970, Jean-Paul Sartre faced a significant challenge in his personal life. He began to gradually lose his vision. Despite this adversity, Sartre persisted in his intellectual activity, continuing to write and give lectures until the end of his life. His progressive blindness did not stop him from continuing to contribute to the world of philosophy and literature. Even facing difficulties, Sartre remained faithful to his passion for writing and thinking, adapting to the physical limitations imposed by the loss of vision. During this period, Sartre published some of his final works, including his memoirs The Words, 1964, and The Prison, 1973. In these works, he reflected on his life, his career, and his intellectual legacy. The Words is a reflection on his childhood and youth, while The Prison addresses his experience as a prisoner of war during the Second World War. Despite physical difficulties, Sartre remained active until the end, continuing to share his ideas and insights with the world. His determination and resilience in the face of adversity are a testament to his strength of character and his devotion to the intellectual life. In short, the period after 1970 was marked by Sartre's persistence and perseverance, despite the physical challenges he faced. His blindness did not diminish his passion for writing and thinking, and he left a lasting legacy as one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century. 1980, Death. On April 15, 1980, Paris lost one of its most brilliant and influential minds. Jean-Paul Sartre passed away at the age of 75, leaving behind a legacy that transcended geographic and disciplinary boundaries. His death was mourned not only by the intellectual community, but by all those whose lives were touched by his ideas and works. Sartre was more than a philosopher. He was a multifaceted thinker, addressing issues ranging from the nature of human existence to social and political injustices. His voice resonated not only in academic halls, but also on theater stages, in the pages of novels, and in public debates about ethics and politics. His legacy is vast and diverse. As a philosopher, Sartre left fundamental works that continue to challenge and inspire scholars around the world. From The Imagination to Being and Nothingness and Critique of Dialectical Reason, his reflections on freedom, responsibility, and authenticity have shaped the course of contemporary philosophy. In theater, Sartre left an impressive set of plays that explore the moral and existential dilemmas of the human condition. The Flies, No Way Out, and Dirty Hands stand as powerful testaments to Sartre's unique worldview, leading audiences to question their own choices and ethical commitments. His novels also left an indelible mark on 20th century literature. Nausea and The Roads to Freedom explore the depths of the human experience, revealing the paradoxes of freedom and alienation in modern society. Furthermore, Sartre's essays continue to be essential reading for those interested in social and political issues. The Anti-Semite, Question of Method, and situations offer deep insights into anti-Semitism, Marxist dialectics, and other crucial themes of their time. Jean-Paul Sartre not only left behind a vast and varied body of work, he also left a lasting impact on human thought. His influence spans generations, inspiring not only philosophers and writers, but also activists, artists, and all those who seek to understand and transform the world around them. In his death, the world lost an intellectual giant, but his legacy lives on in his works, which continue to challenge, provoke, and inspire those who encounter them. His life and work are a powerful reminder of the power of the human mind to shape the course of history and culture. We hope you enjoyed this brief journey through the life of Jean-Paul Sartre. Leave your comment, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss our next videos about great thinkers in history. To the next.